Let's start off something about Asur B'Tevis. Says tomorrow in Navi Yecheskel, in Kapitel Chav Daled, the beginning of Chav Daled in Yecheskel, it says like this: V'hidvar Hashem Elai. Yecheskel says that Hashem spoke to me by Shana Chias in the 9th year. Rashi explains that the Melech Tzidkiyahu is getting close to the Churban Abayis, that Tkufa. B'Chodesh Hasiri, in the 10th month. That is this month, Tevis. Hashem spoke to him on the 10th month. The Esel HaChodesh, on the 10th day of 10th month. That's tomorrow, Asar B'Tevis. Hashem spoke to Yecheskel. Later, when he said Ben Adam, he always refers to Yecheskel as Ben Adam. Ksav L'cha Hashem Hayoim. Write down this day. Record this day in your notes, whatever it is, as Etzem Hayoim Hazeh. This day. Because this very day, Samach Melech Bavel El Yerushalayim. The Melech Bavel, Nebuchadnezzar, surrounded Yerushalayim. Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. By the way, we know from this halacha, Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh, that's why we fast even tomorrow. We don't push off this tinus because it says Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. This is the pasuk, beginning of Chav Daled. But there's interesting Radak here. The Radak says that Yecheskel was at this time, he himself was in Bavel. And Hashem spoke to him to write down what is occurring this very day in Yerushalayim, that Nebuchadnezzar surrounded the city. So he says, Radak says like this: Hanavua, Boloi, this Nebuah came to him by Asar B'Tevis, Shabbaisai, Kushavai Yom, Samach Melech Bavel Yerushalayim. So he says like this: But Amalai, Hashem, what was this idea? Write this down in your notes. So he says, V'amalai, the Radak says, Sheyichtayv Oisayim, V'yira Lefnei HaGoyla. He should show the people in Golis that were there with him already, I guess, that what he wrote. Ki Oisayim, that in this day, right now, this day didn't have those days any cell phones, communications. He said, Oisayim Samach Melech Bavel, Ukshiyishmu Achar Kain, when they find out later from people that will end up coming and telling them, Yodu, this will be they'll get a deed, this will be a proof, that this was an emes Navi, the emes same dvarav, Shoim Lehem B'Shem Hashem, Yishmu Oid El Nevi HaSheker. So this would be a raya that he knew. In other words, Hashem told him in where he was in Golis, I think it was in Bavel, but he was somewhere in Golis, that what's happening in Yerushalayim that day, and he would record it, and this would be a proof that he's an emes Navi. That's what the. So once I had a small thought about this, that here we're holding now the beginning of the Asar B'Tevis. This took place, the beginning of the Churban, the first step of the Churban, and Hashem is investing sort of to say a shtickle ness here to show the mitos of Nevuah. Hold by Churban now. Now's the time to show the time that the Eibusha is sort of bringing down Klal Yisrael, and he's saying Chizik. So somehow it had thought into my mind that it's similar when there was Churban was going on in Europe, and there was the older Torah was coming down, the God's Klal Yisrael was getting destroyed, but at the very same time in America, there was going on a shtickle buildup of Torah already, Shagafayv Mendelovitz. At the same time that there was a Churban in Europe, there was the beginning, the Aschala of the building of Torah in America. Yeah, so the same time. Yes. That's why I don't know if it's a good zustel that here, and I just said in Navi Yecheskel, starts out in Perikot Dalet, that Hashem told him, he was in Golis already, and Hashem told him to record that this very day, Asar B'Tevis, you should write this down, that right now in Bavel, in Yerushalayim, Nebuchadnezzar surrounding Yerushalayim. That was Radak says, the Mechazik Inyan of Nevuah. At the time of Churban, the Eibusha gave the very same time. Also, I felt like a little bit like Yosef Tzaddik when he was sold. The same time he had the good smell of Samim. Somebody even b'shas Churban, there's certain chizukim that are available for Klal Yisrael. Anyway, so Shmuezzen Tzal, Shmuezzen Kotler used to speak on Asar B'Tevis, so they print what he said. So he says that he brings this thing that the pasuk says Be'etzem Yom Hazeh. That's why we fast, even if it's in the pasuk over here says Be'etzem Yom Hazeh. And he said, why is this tinus taka more chomer than any other tinus that we don't push off any other. There's the only tinus we don't push off. He says that the Rishonim say if we fall out on the Shabbos, we would fast on Shabbos also. He brings. The Chassam Sofer says because this is more chomer because it was the haskalah of the churban, and the haskalah is the shirish for everything that comes out of it. So even though, in a sense, it was the least destructive, they just surrounded now. They didn't break in yet. They haven't shivas b'tamis. They didn't destroy yet. But the beginning is more chomer. This is where everything comes from this. And he says that the side of a tainus brings the Rambam that the Rambam writes in his tainus the yesh sham yamim shekol yisrael misana behem because the tzoros that happened in those days. What is the purpose? Kedei la'oyer halavavos l'ftayach darchi tshuva. The purpose of the tainus is to open up our hearts to darchi tshuva. He says yikorin l'maseinu haroyim. We should remember the averis that were done. Ma'asav eseinu shoyek maseinu ata achigarim lehem v'lano atzoros. That all the averis that were done caused the tzoros that came from it. And this, by thinking into this will help us be misakin. Hopefully, to be misakin all the averis that were done. And he says, the Rambam also writes, he brings here, called Tzaimis Halala Asidum Libatul L'Masa Mashiach. And not only that, to be bottled, Shem Asidim Lias Yomtov B'Yemei Sasim V'Simcha. But he says, so Rav Shneur like too, he says that the whole purpose of the tainus is a tikkun, and he says when the tikkun will be nishlam, it'll become a yomtiv. We're trying to be in the fast that we have tomorrow. We're trying to be misakin everything that was done wrong, and we hope that it'll bring us closer to Mashiach and to turn to Sasim and Simcha. And those when he said the Shmuz, he speaks here about the Yidden in Russia. That was going on then. He said we should be started from the Tsar of Yidden in Russia. And he says that he brings the Chavis Chaim wasn't Messiah Das for even a moment from the situation that the Yidden had in Russia. But he says the Ikatainus of the Asar B'Tevis is about what happened was the things that happened on that day were brought about a Yerida and Ruchnius of Klal Yisrael. He says in the Slichas tomorrow, we mentioned 3 tzaras that happened in Chodesh Tevis. They translated the Torah into Yavonis. There was the Misa of Ezra Sefer, and then there was the surrounding of the city by Nebuchadnezzar. He says they all were Redifis and Ruchnius. The fact that they made us to translate the Torah into Yavonis, he says in Megillus Tainus, it says that the world was dark for 3 days. There was such a terrible thing that happened that the Goyim got sort of hold of our Torah. And it was our Averis that caused this. He says that the Goyim had a Shlit in our Torah. And it became darkened the light of the Torah. In Mises Ezra, he brings the Gemara in Megillah, that Ezra was also Malachai, who was the last of the Nevi'im. And he says that when he was Nifta, that was the end of the Tkufa of Nevu and Klal Yisrael. And so when he died, there was a big Yerida in the Ruchnis of Klal Yisrael. And he says Smichas Melech Bavel, that he surrounded the city, was the Malkum of the Migdash and Ashras Shechina. That was started the bittul of the Shechina in Klal Yisrael, he says. So this is all about, and then he says, it's still in our day, there's a Muhammad against those who are trying to be Messiah, the Torah, change the Torah in their ways. Those who attach the Torah into you translate different ways. I just read a story somewhere, and I can't remember where it was. It just said the Chavis Chaim in his time, he saw someone showed him a sefer. Someone wrote like a kitzur of the Chumash in a sense, the stories of the Chumash. It brings some parts, not other parts. Chavis Chaim was very upset about this, and he made a kol kairi about it, that they're taking the Torah, they're changing the Torah. So he said the Muhammad is still going on. That's what the Sheriff says here, that the people that are Messiah the Torah, and that's what he speaks about. So tomorrow's a day, is a Tainus, day of, supposed to be a day of Tshuva, is Avaita. I want to say another thing that I heard from Reb Shneur, that we got to this parsha. In Hilchos Krishma, the Rambam brings that when Yaakov gathered the Shvatim with B'Sayf Yamav, So he says that the Ram brings in the Pergal Krishma, Alachadal, the correct Krishma, when he finishes the first pasuk, we say Baruch Shem. Then we continue Vahavta. So why do we say Baruch Shem? It's not in the Chumash, that pasuk. So he says, it's a Messiah we have. I think the Gemara speaks about that. When Yaakov Avinu gathered the Shvatim around him, B'shas Misasai, he first gave him, it was Mazaras them, and Yichud Hashem, and Derech Hashem, on the way that Avram lived and Yitzchak lived. And then he asked him, V'shalaisum v'amalahem, Bonai, he asked a question to them, Shem yesh bechem paslos. Maybe there's someone here that doesn't fit in with this, you know. He has paslos, mishaina imid imi, who doesn't stand with me, b'yichud Hashem. And he says, that's like Moshe Rabbeinu said, Pen yesh bechem yesh ha'isha, whatever it is. So, Anu kulam v'amru Shema Yisrael, they said this pasuk. Shema Yisrael means referring to Yisrael, then that was the name of Yaakov, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Lokeinu, Hashem Echad. Claim Shema Mimenu, Avinu Yisrael, Hashem Lokeinu, Hashem Echad. So when he heard that everyone, all the Shvatim accepted this, Pasach Hazak and V'ama, he said, Baruch Shem Kvei Mechusadim Bled. And Lefika became a minig, Nagel Klal Yisrael, to say that Shvach, that Yaakov Avinu said, we said also after that pasuk. So this so Reb Shmuezzen said like this. He said what he understood from this Rambam. What was Yaakov Avinu asking now? Shem yesh b'chem psul. He said, "Bon Hashem yesh b'chem paslos mishenu ein benim b'yichud Hashem." So he said like this. He said that we know that Avram Avinu, even though he was the first of the Ovis and in the Maimin he taught Amunah, but he had a son Yishmael who fell out of the system. Only Yitzchak. Yitzchak called Chazara. Yitzchak is ready the next generation, but he still had an Esav. And they also fell out. So Yaakov gave them, he's telling them, this is the last moment. That's how Reb Shneir learned Pshat in this Rambam. Is anybody that wants out, they could step out. You know, this is still, it's not. But when they were Makabel and they said Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that sealed Klal Yisrael. After that, a Yid can never drop out. Yisrael, no Yid you can't lose your Yiddishkeit. Impossible. But he learned that this is where it happened. At the last moments of Yaakov Avinu's life, he that's what he said. Right now is the last time. And I understood also that this is the end of the Tkufas of Ovis. The Ovis, it took 3 generations to establish Klal Yisrael, 3 Ovis, and this was the final moment. And when this is sealed, there's no more Ovis. This is and now it's ready sealed. I remember hearing that Reb Ritzel Kutner used to say a Vertel. He said in Yiddish, it's much better than I'll translate, but he used to say Avram is given the erste gevorene. He was the first one that became a Yid. He gevorene Yid. He became Yid. Yitzchak given the erste geborene. He was the first one born a Jew. His father was a Jew. He was son of a Jew. And Yaakov given the erste verfallene. He said Yaakov was the first one that he couldn't back out anymore. So Avram was the first one who became. Yitzchak was the first one who was born. And Yaakov was the first one that's verfallen, means like no way out. So I mean, to me, it sounds like he was saying that it was already sealed when Yaakov was born. Yaakov, you see, because from Yaakov, no one dropped out anymore. You know, so I guess the Pashut shot is that it was at Yaakov's birth already it was sealed. Yaakov there's to fulfill. He himself was, you know, but if the way of Shneir learned, it was still open. It only became sealed at the end of Yaakov Avinu's life. That's what. At this occasion, when he from this week's parsha, when he gathered them, and he asked them this question, and they accepted and said Shema, with the Kabbalah of Shema Yisrael, with that pasuk, that sealed it. When they said Shema Yisrael, that sealed Klal Yisrael. That's what he learned Pshat in this Rambam. I saw an interesting Rabbeinu B'chai in this week's parsha also. Rabbeinu B'chai on the Chumash Testimony. And the bracha of Yehuda, he said, if you look in the Chumash, when the bracha that Yaakov gave to Yehuda, and you look through you'll find all the letters of the Aleph base, he said. I don't know who would ever, interesting that he made this observation. You'll find all the letters Aleph Beis in Yehuda's bracha, except for Zion. That's what he said. I didn't double check, but he says that. But he says like this. He says, "In mistakel beparsha zu, bebirchas Yehuda timtza sham kol oisius HaTorah v'shumos chutz mi'Zion." So he says tam. No, you know of it? It's Mavus. No, I know. So he says like. So he says Malchus Yehuda comes. Malchus Yisrael comes from Yehuda, and ein iken itzchoinem bekli Zion. He says kishar umais. Klal Yisrael's power is not with weapons. He says Zion is kli Zion, weapons. He says in Yehuda's Malchus there's no Zion. He says ki acherev Yerushalayim Esav. That's for Esav, weapons. Malchus Yisrael is loy b'char b'mirshul aretz. Ve'ein neheges minig hateva b'koyach hayad. Rak lefi haschus, only the schusim ha'einish b'koyach ha'elyon yisbarach. So he says, and that's why he goes on to say, Yehuda has in his, the Yud Kei Vav Kei is in Yehuda's name. B'zeh timtzav shmai shel Yehuda shamalchus mimenu Hashem hamyuchid sholem. Because he says, that's what counts. Ki Yisrael oisem mitzvah shel mokum, Yisrael oisem chayil. Then Yidna Matzliach U'Malchusam Miskaberes Matzleches. And the Shem HaMyuch is with them, Ve'ein Tzarech Kli Zayin. That's what that Yehuda, that's how it should be ideally speaking. Klal Yisrael, ideally speaking, should not need weapons. They should need the Shem HaMyuchid, if we're Zaycha for that. Then he says, how did the Dawah get into Yehuda's name with Yud Kei Vav Kei? He was the fourth child born to Yaakov Avinu. Or he says something about the Shemesh, exactly. Yeah.
From Yehuda became David Amelech became the fourth
wheel in the
chariot.
Says he came. David Amelech came from him as the fourth. Okay, but so he says that. Then he says another pshat that why the Zion. He says because Yehuda says I think Zayis Bracha says Zayis Yehuda. But Moshe Ben gave Zayis Yehuda. That's the Zion epis that he says he has. He says that the Zion is Zayis Yehuda. The Ravla. I don't know. Somehow that's the Zion. There's Zayis Yehuda. Okay, that's a club. But then he says new pshat, another very nice pshat, and he says why the Zion is not missing. Was missing by Yehuda because he says he was the seventh person. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. He was number 7. So he says, Yehuda who keneged Yom HaShvi shel Shabbos. Interesting thing. That he doesn't say Zion by Yehuda because he was Shabbos. And that's what it says in the Pasuk, Yehuda ati yeducha achecha, because he says, Toiv l'hoides l'Hashem. Says, that's Shachat Shabbos, Mr. Shalom Shabbos, Toiv l'hoides l'Hashem. So here it says Yeducha, because Yehuda is a Bechin of Shabbos. And then he says, Baita, that it says, Miterev B'ni Elisa. What does that mean? Pasha means you didn't kill Yosef, you removed yourself from, you said you shouldn't kill him. But he said, Terev is Lashon of Mezainis, Hatrifeni Lechem Chuki. And he's saying, Miterev B'nei Elisa means you're B'china Shabbos. Yontif, you're allowed to cook Eichel Nefesh. But you're B'china Shabbos, we don't cook, we don't eat, we don't cook food. Miterev B'nei Elisa means we don't cook on your, it's a remez of not to cook on Shabbos. That's what he says. He's saying reminds me of Shabbos. And he says, L'salak atzmcham b'Shabbos afil mi mazon eichel nefesh. L'sasa kol malacha. Then he says, Kara rovatz ka'aryeh, k'lavim mi kamenu. That he sits like a lion, like it's a remez to Shabbos that we're not supposed to go out of the tchum, shvuish tachtov. A mechaykik mi ben raglov, it's a remez to Mila that's derech Shabbos. Mamish Muslim here, Yisrael gefen irila shareka b'ni asoinai. Asoinai means a chamor. So he says, and by Shabbos it says, L'man yinuach sharcha v'chamarcha. Kibis b'yayim levushay, It's a remes to Kiddush with the ayin. And he says, Chachlili Einayim is a remes that Psia Gas and Shabbos takes away Mimor Einayim Shaladim. He mamish just goes through this whole thing with the Muslim of Shabbos. Very dikazach that the so this is the but here we see an interesting limud. He says how a malchus on Klal Yisrael should be. We shouldn't need Kli Zayin. That's how we're very far from that. Indian seems. Then we shared this. I've in the past mentioned this. That
She says we shouldn't buy any guns.
in Klal Yisrael, she shoulders shouldn't need any guns. That's what it says.
Yeah.
This whole thing of war and armies, it's not really what was supposed to be, Klal Yisrael.
Sing. Should be stay. What? We should be studying. Should be car.
This woman in the past, at the end of the parsha, in Parsha Viyachi, is some more dik psukim when the Shvatim after the Misa of Yosef Tzadik, B'yu Achi Yosef Kimesa B'yim. So Rashi brings in the Harav some drashim that he didn't invite them anymore to eat the sudas with him. So they said that looks like he hates us. Now he's going to get back at us. So Chazal say that the reason he didn't invite him to sudas was not because of that, because when Yaakov was still alive, he made Yosef sit at the head of the table. But now that he's not alive, Yosef didn't want to sit at the head of the table, and he knew that Yehuda wouldn't sit at the head of the table because Yaakov could put him on the head of the table. So he didn't make any sudas with him. But they thought that the reason they didn't make sudas is because now he's going to get back at them. Also, was the mice when they went to bury Yaakov, he went to the bar where they had thrown him in. So that they also misunderstood that he went to make a bracha there, that Asli Nes Makamazeh, and they thought he's reminding himself of that they threw him into the bar. I got this. I think I was looking around in the farm. I think I saw this from Isaac Osman. Yes, like some more sefer chumash with some vertach. It says here, "You Aki Yosef Kimesa B'Yem B'Yemu Lu used to mainly Yosef." So Lu over here means maybe, Shema, Dilma. The Targum says maybe yes, but Lu sometimes means halavai. So he wants to say a pshat. That sometimes they knew that they deserve an einish for what they did, for the big avera that they did, and they said halavai he would hate us and punish us. That's Lu. That's what the new pshat in this pasuk. Lu. I think Rabbi Isaac Osman I saw. Lu used to mean Yosef. Halavai he would punish us in this world. We wouldn't have to, But in any case, so they said. So they made up a story. They sent a message to Yosef. Vichad Siluf ne Moise Lema, Kaisam Yosef, Ana Sona Pesha Checha Vatasum Kirad Melucha, Ata Sona Pesha Avdi Elukei Vicha. Yech Yosef, when he heard this, he started crying. And they fell before him, and we said, "We're avodim to you." So these things like this. It's more like dumb before we get to the rest of the psukim, the rest of the response. The Ma'aseh it says in the Torah Lo Sikon, which is a very difficult thing. A person that could take the Nekama, it's a very, some people, they can't rest till they take the Nekama that they have. But Torah says, Leisikon. So how does a person that is supposed to accomplish this? So there's two mahalchim. The Chinuch says, a person should say, whatever someone did to him was min hashamayim. He maybe was the shliach, but it's min hashamayim that was supposed to happen to him. So when you're taking the comment to this person, it's like Hashem sort of said, hit the person with a stick. This is the stick. You're going to taking the comment to the stick. It's the person that was bashet for him, whatever reason it is, that there's not the person doesn't have the bechira to hurt someone else, in a sense. If it wouldn't happen if that wasn't from Hashem. That's one mahalach in the Rishonim. The Rambam Hilchos Deis has a very different understanding. He says, why get upset about anything in this world? It's all klein as achim. Nothing is not worth getting upset about. So take the comma, forget about it. There's other things more important. He said, that's what Rambam says. So it seems that Yosef, perhaps you could say, used both approaches here for himself. How did he and said in a sense, I could get over that feeling. I don't know if he had that feeling. So he says, "V'emlam Yosef, v'emalem Yosef, al tiro, ki asachs l'kimani, v'atem chashavtem alai ra, but l'kim chashav l'toiva." So right away he said it was the Eibishter, and it was even for toiva. But l'man asoik hayoim hazel hachyish amrov. Look what came out of this. He didn't look down at the suffering that he had, all the years that he was in jail. He looked at the bigger picture. There was Lataiva. It was a good thing happened here. Hashem's plan, and look what, there was a positive thing that happened. Don't worry about it. So this is the you see here in the tzidkas of Yosef Tzaddik, how that there's Shvatim, what tzaddikim, we don't have any asognis, and they could not be masig that he wouldn't take Nekama. They thought they're going to get it now. And they read things wrong. They understood him wrongly. It's definitely he's out to get us. No more eating with him. He's going to the bar. Even they could not be masigid. And Yosef rose above all these zachim. There's a famous Maisa that has shtickle shaykhs to this maybe with the Ger Tzedek of Vilna. Maybe everyone knows the Maisa, but the Ger Tzedek, who knows he was from a prominent Goyish family, and he became a ger, and they were very upset, and he tried to go in hiding, whatever it was, and then someone snitched on him, and they found him, and they said either, I guess, he goes back, comes a guy again, or they're going to burn him by the stake. And they I think the Vilna Gaon, they say, sent a message to him that he could save him with a shame, whatever it was, when he said he doesn't want. And they tortured him first before the burning. They tortured him, and they say to Maisa that the one that was torturing him couldn't get over how he was enduring all the suffering. So he said to him, "You're probably since you believe in God, whatever it is, you believe that you're going to get back at us one day somehow. You're going to." Next world, this world, whatever it was, and that's what giving you the power to withstand all of this. That you're going to get back at us. So he answered them. That's what he said over. That's what I guess the person told over that he answered it with a mushroom. He said there was once a prince who had a friend as a young boy, and they were playing together. And little prince, built from sand. He built a palace or something, a castle, and the friend broke the castle. So the prince, as a kid, said to his friend, "Now I'm just a kid, but one day I'm going to become the king of this country, and you better watch out." Warn them that one day I'm going to, I really gave it to you for this. And Vahia Yoim, that the years passed, and this boy, the prince, became the king, and there was a coronation, there was a parade, and as the parade was going in the street, a man came and threw himself in front of the carriage of the king, threw himself on the floor, and they stopped him and picked him up. What's this? He spoke to the king, says, I'm that boy that broke your castle, and please, forgive me. So the king said, "You foolish man, I was a young boy then. That's what I said then, but now I just got the malchus, I have things on my head. I'm not busy. I'm not worried about my sand castle anymore. Don't worry about it." So that's what the Ger Tzedek said in Mashal. He said that in this world you think all the suffering is something to get upset about. What happens is the pain and the suffering in this world is something that you'll take revenge for it. But he says, "I'll take revenge for it." But he says, "I'll come to Elam Haba. This is all going to be small time." He said, in matter of fact, he said, "I'm going to thank you in the next world for helping me get to the Madrega that I'm going to get," he said. So this is how he dealt with this. It's a little bit in what we're talking about, that the Rambam says that everything in this world is small time. It's not a person can rise above and to look at things in a bigger picture. That's what Yeshivas Tzaddik did here. He said, "Kim chashav l'toiva, the man asay, I'm Rav." the big thing, you go to the big picture. Anyway, Shmuzzen, they have the tinus, which Shmuzzen that are Philish Minuskabel, Shmuzzen to Binyan Bias, and everything.
Oh, no, they.
Yeah, Mitham.
They say it's during weekend. I don't know if he said they got us killing him.